Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Stillwater Planning Commission of November 17th to order. The process this evening will call for items on the agenda, and the commission will hear a staff report first, then open public hearing and hear from those in favor and or opposition. If you come, I believe, to the podium over here to the right, is this correct? You will give your name, clearly state your name and address for the record. And after all have spoken, public hearing will be closed, and then we'll have closing remarks and consider alternatives from the staff. With that, the first item for business will be map amendment from 2020 Investment Group, LLC, map amendment MA 20-06, requesting review and approval to rezone property address as 908 East 12th Avenue from residential single-family small lot, RSS, to residential multifamily urban RMU district. Yes, sir.
Chairman, members of the Commission, Ryan Harkins, Community Development. This is a map amendment to rezone property at 908 East 12th from RSS to RMU. You can see on this graphic that property in the hatch pattern is the subject property in question. You can see it faces on 12th. When you look at the aerial, you'll notice the property in the yellow polygon is the subject property. You can see 12th Street. This is looking essentially to the directly north, almost northeast. Swimming pool and tennis courts, as well as a senior center, are to the south across the street. This is the zoning map, and you can see where the RSS is in play, as well as the P public zoning. That's because of all the park space and public facilities. There is commercial general nearby, as well as ag. This is the future land use map, and a close-up indicates that this area was forecasted at the time of the comprehensive plan's creation to be low density. That does, however, create a number of possibilities within that designation, up to 20 dwelling units per acre. With that, staff would stand for questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now have the, usually we've got the proposer or the someone to speak on behalf of this. We'll open the public hearing, and wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward and your name and address for the record.
Does this include the applicant?
Yeah, the applicant. Yes, please.
Chairman Rickelman, forgive me because I'm ignorant here. I've not done this before. I watched a couple and there was a time limit. Is there still a 5-minute cap on speaking today?
Well, your name and address, and it doesn't look like we have a ton of people here, so at this point, we do not have a time limit, however, obviously.
Okay, well, 90 minutes. Joshua Conaway, 1735 Northwest 37th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73118.
Thank you.
I promise to be brief and concise. By my training as a profession, in my profession, that's what I do. So, hello, Planning Commission. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm Joshua Conaway, the applicant seeking to rezone 908 East 12th Street, Stillwater, Oklahoma, which we've fondly become to call it the Big House. The two topics I'll cover tonight are, first, the safety of the proposed use, and second, how the proposed use fits within RMU's permitted uses. Before hitting these topics as a new face, albeit behind a mask, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a graduate of Oklahoma State University, and I practice law and now teach practical law courses at technology centers in Oklahoma City, in Enid, and here in Stillwater. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Thrilled to do it in person instead of over Zoom. After spending 2 months working with Lance to make sure that using the Big House as a college rental facility would not violate current zoning laws in Stillwater, my father and I purchased the Big House back in May of 2019. The property is currently rented to college students. In the summer of 2019, Dee Miller, a retired Department of Corrections community sentencing administrator, met with Dad and presented to him the idea that the big house may be able to house a proposed new program in Stillwater. My father called me excited about the opportunity to help women who were in need in the city of Stillwater and surrounding communities. Dad's an ordained minister and does prison ministry in prisons in northwest Oklahoma. He has a heart to see redemption, change, and second chances being provided to those who really need it. And he and I believe that this program would offer an opportunity for women in need in Stillwater just that. The program's mission is to provide women who have nonviolent histories of substance abuse, mental health experiences, and traumatic experiences a true opportunity at rehabilitation and success. This will be accomplished by fostering a living environment that is rich in support and dedicated to the development of life and career skills. Ms. Miller plans to share more on the mission of the program, and I welcome any questions that the Commission may have on the program's mission, but to save time, I'll save those and would like to address the community's concern, the most important concern at issue here tonight: safety. If I lived right beside the big house, I would want to know that I and my family would be safe if this map amendment were to go through. I'd like to offer 3 points to the Commission as well as the community to assure the neighbors and the community at large that this program will have no negative safety implications and in fact improve the safety of the community. First, the program is designed for women who have a nonviolent past and are seeking a true opportunity for rehabilitation. The residents of this program will go through a committee and then be approved by the district attorney before they're ever selected to be a candidate to be reformed and to gain the career skills that this program is designed to teach. It'll also be used as a screening process to make sure that any future residents or potential residents do not cause the current residents or neighbors any issues at all. Second, the program is very secure. Residents will be required to leave their prior lives behind. This isn't a come and go facility. They'll come here and they'll stay here. They will not have private transportation of their own, but will be required to utilize the shuttle services provided by the program. Visitors to the program are not allowed. And lastly, the participants will be selected for this program, which is a privilege and not a right. Staff will be on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to assist in the rehabilitation efforts as well as to address any issues that might arise. Any residents who cause problems will be discharged from the program. With these safeguards in place, the program ensures the safety of the surrounding neighbors and helps ensure a safer community at large by rehabilitating individuals who pose a risk of reoffending the law. The second point that I want to address tonight for the Commission is that RMU's permitted uses would allow the program to operate at the big house. The report issued by the Community Development Department incorrectly identified this as an adult care services program. It's important to clarify that this is a residential program. Stillwater City ordinances define adult care services as licensed establishments providing day services and/or treatment for adults, but not residential services. Without a specific use permit, these non-residential adult care service facilities are reserved for commercially zoned lots. This ordinance protects neighborhoods from increased traffic and unknown individuals from entering the neighborhood throughout the day. Even though the big house is surrounded by public land and other commercial properties, rezoning to a commercial property is not required for this program to utilize the big house for its services. Because the program is residential in nature, it is not an adult care facility as contemplated by the ordinances. Instead, the program would need a permitted use of multifamily to house the women and a permitted use of mixed use to better facilitate the rehabilitation efforts. Both multifamily and mixed use are permitted uses under the RMU district. In summation, safety issues are minimized because the residents are thoroughly vetted, monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by trained staff, and are participating in the program by selection and approval. This program will not increase the traffic in the neighborhood, nor encourage strangers to enter into that neighborhood on a regular basis. It's a 12-month residential program where women are provided a true opportunity for reform. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the item? Please step forward and give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dee Miller, 1602 Fairfield Drive, Stillwater, Oklahoma. I retired from the Department of Corrections in January 2019. Everybody should clap. Okay. After 34 years of service, and basically what I did was for adult felons, we did treatment, close supervision, monitoring. This is not probation and parole, but community sentencing. Our focus was treatment. Most of you may know, and some of you may not, Oklahoma has one of the highest rates of female incarceration in the nation, okay? There are only 2 programs in this state, one in Tulsa, which is Women in Recovery, and the second, which is Remerge in Oklahoma City. They only take women from those 2 counties and place them in their programs. Payne and Logan County, which we would look at the women from both places to put in this program. On an average, between the 2 counties, we send about 30 women to prison every year, just from this little place. You average a little over 1,600 of them being arrested every single year. The majority of the women, substance abuse-related offenses, substance abuse-related behavior. This would be a program which would allow those women inpatient, intensive, long-term treatment. The treatment providers will come to the center. They aren't going anywhere, okay? We also have plans to have a dietitian come, cook, teach them how to cook, how to shop. That's some of the things that they're missing. We've talked to educators so they can get their GEDs. We want to work with the Employment Commission to help them get a job skill when they're in phases 3 and 4 before they're released, so that they have some clean time, structured time. They deal with their substance abuse, their mental health, whatever, trauma. Those things all manage to keep them in a cycle. A little over 50% of these women have been to prison before. You've got about 80% of them that have prior convictions, and we're targeting the age group between 30 and 39. So we're not looking at the little babies, the 20-year-olds, who it's hard to keep them still. But those that are older, again, but they're the top part of the system that continue to get in trouble, okay? I've always worked very hard with our females, mainly because they have children, to try to get them straightened out, so their children don't wind up in the system. I worked long enough in the Department of Corrections to see 3 generations of a family come through my program. And that's just hard to swallow sometimes. This would give, and the house would hold 18 at the max, okay? We're not talking about 50 women, but 18 between the ages of 30 and 39 to spend this year in structured treatment. I know it's a concern where it's located, but we plan on putting locks, cameras on the doors. There is no visiting. Those that have children will agree, sign. We're not doing reunification with their families, none of that. The goal is during that 12 months is that they focus on themselves. So I do understand the scariness of the opportunity, but it's also an opportunity to help the 2 counties do something positive with these women, because they're coming back home. If you send them to prison for a 5-year sentence, they're out in 60 days. No treatment. Department of Corrections is full. So it's an opportunity for people who live here to get the support, the counseling, and the training they need, so they can return after that year with some success, some guidance. The other part of this is when they finish the program, we're going to look at another 6 to 9 months of outpatient services for them, so they have some follow-up, continued counseling, treatment, the things that they need to help them be successful. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposal, please step forward. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please step forward. Give your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Denise Roberts, 1814 West University, but I also own property at 816 and 816 and a half East 12th, which is just down from the facility. And I have great renters. They are fabulous people. And I am here for the dangers. I am really concerned. When I read the profile for the actual rezoning, it said high risk, and that really concerned us, and we didn't, all of us were very scared of, it says in your proposal, it says intended to house women facility to rehabilitate individuals with new criminal charges or high risk individuals. And that's what really made all of us very nervous. My renters are handicapped. I also have a woman next door to us that is an Alzheimer's woman, and she is very nervous about the facility as well, just for the extra traffic and the dangers that it possesses. Not only is it the safety that we're concerned about. As a child, I grew up not very far from the swimming pool. I walked to the swimming pool on my own. I know there are a lot of children that are unsupervised, that they walk to that swimming pool every day in the summer. I also know that the most vulnerable people are around that area. It's a low-income area, and there is a lot of concerns about safety. I think that it brings a different issue to that area that's already a low-income area. And I think it would invite different problems that don't already exist. I know that Stillwater has also had a lot of problems with the homeless there at the swimming pool, and has done a lot of stuff to get rid of the homeless in the swimming pool area as well. But I just think that the most vulnerable people in our community are in that area. The high school kids, they go to the tennis courts. They're unsupervised except for a coach and an assistant student that it helps them. The swimming pool, the food bank, the senior citizens center, and as well as the park. And I think if you're truly saying that there's only going to be 18 and they never leave and they're not high-risk people, then maybe there's a different issue. But when you put the proposal out for a high risk and reincarceration, that's scary. And people in that area are afraid of the high risk. So I think that I am definitely opposed to it, not only for myself, but for the people of Stillwater who are the most vulnerable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please step forward, list your name and address for the record. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? I will note that there were some emails and some more other correspondence that was presented in our packet, just so that everyone knows that we did receive those things, that was received. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and ask for staff's alternatives.
So, staff report and the findings based on that staff report were written with the idea of what limited information staff could obtain at the time. With that said, code allows for rezoning through the map amendment process. While RMU is not an adjacent zoning district found in this area, there is other residential and potential areas that could be a buffer to it. Originally, staff was under the impression, based on what information we had, that this was going to be a type of group rehab home that would be allowed through the SUP process in the RMU zoning district. Mixed use is a potential preferred use that is allowed and permitted. The map amendment process allows for these types of facilities right now or through an SUP process. As we mentioned originally, the comp plan allows or designates this as low-density residential in this area. In terms of alternatives, you can find that a recommendation of approval to City Council as presented is in order, and make that recommendation. You can find the request is not appropriate and recommend denial. You can, if there's additional discussion needed in your mind or information desired, you can table the item to a date certain as well. Questions about findings or alternatives?
Any questions from the board about the findings or the alternatives as presented? Thank you very much. Commission discussion or action?
Well, I had a couple of questions for the applicant. Is that,
Sure. I mean,
okay, I don't know who would like to come to the
I
podium.
presume, it's probably best to bring them up to the podium if they're going to answer the question so that they can get it on the record.
The questions I had were, would you summarize again the security arrangements for the facility or the residential home?
Yes, and if I may, if you have specific questions, Dee Miller is the director of this proposed organization. She'll be able to
Okay.
answer anywhere that I can't. But there's going to be staff that's on site living with these individuals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There'll always be somebody there to monitor what's happening. We've already discussed before security measures at the property, including installing security cameras, locks, to ensure that nobody can.
Where would the security cameras be located? Is there any? Do you know that yet?
There already are cameras located on the building. It would monitor the entire perimeter or exterior of the building.
Okay. And how many staff, excuse me, will be at the facility at different times during the 24-hour period?
If I can, Commissioner, defer to Dee on that one.
Sure.
I can't answer that.
Please come on up.
During the day, during their treatment time, there will be a mental health, a substance abuse person, and also a trauma person who will provide counseling for them. You will have 2 staff, which we're calling house staff. So there are 2 staff that will work every 8-hour shift. So you've got, 4 during the day and you have another 2 at night. And it covers the same way on the weekend. So there's always 2 staff, if you want to call them security or house staff, to the 18 people, so 1 in 9.
Okay. And what type or level of training will these staff people have?
We will work on them for multiple things. 1, they will learn security. They'll also be exposed to some treatment so they can watch if there is such criminal behavior. We're going to go through using probably some of maybe the sheriff's training so that they have any sort of physical restraint kind of stuff if they need to do those kinds of things.
And I think perhaps you covered this, but as the person who's spoken opposition to this, the description of these is high risk, I think, generated concern. But again, you say these will be nonviolent offenders?
They will all be nonviolent. They have no violent history at all. So these people that we're going to focus on, again, is those females that are between the ages of 30 and 39. They have substance abuse-related offenses. So they all have possession of CDS, possession without a prescription, those kinds of charges. There may be some that have, for instance, you may have someone who's written $500 in bogus checks. They write checks to get cash to buy drugs. Okay, so we're not looking at anyone who has assault and battery charges and those kinds of things. Those people will not be even interviewed for the program.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all. Other questions or comments from the commission? Or a motion thereof? No comments? No. Anything?
I'm always skeptical of NIMBYism, but I think, of course, the concern here with the public facilities that children use could generate some degree of concern. I'm just not clear what level of concern that is, given the type of people or offenders that will be at this facility.
I have a question for staff, if I may. Do we have some sort of record of crime statistics for that area by chance? I'm guessing not on hand, but is it possible to get that?
I think that that it's going to be a closed system. It's not a halfway house as they've described it. It's more of a closed program that people enter into and they participate into it, and then will graduate or however they go through the program. I think that it's if it were halfway where people are coming and going and I think that I would find more concern along that way. But insofar as it's closed off in this way, I feel like, given the type of persons that they're trying to work with, I am at least have less concern, perhaps, in that regard.
I'll also add, prior to coming this evening and hearing applicants' explanation of really how this facility is proposed to work, the type of individuals that would be here, I also kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit looking at the high risk for reincarceration, not really understanding exactly what it is. And same concerns as you, if people are allowed to come and go freely, what that might bring to the neighborhood. But I think given the plans, the thoughts that we've heard today, these are individuals that are nonviolent, which I think is big, and they are secured to the site. And I definitely, all the statistics that Ms. Miller gave, Oklahoma is, we have one of the highest incarceration rates for women. And we're not doing enough, in my opinion, as a society and as a state to really rehabilitate and try to break that cycle. So I think that this has a lot of merit. I think the question is it in the right place?
Yeah. Well, we need to make a motion on at least one of those three options must be done this evening. So we can accept, and that will then pass it on. It will go on then up to the city council at that point. Or we can reject, or we can set it to a date certain future. So those are really our three alternatives.
So I have thought of a kind of a follow-up question for staff. In the event that this piece of property were to be rezoned RMU, if for some reason this particular activity, this endeavor was not successful and vacated the property, then what does that, what negatives or what's the risk of having an RMU zoning in the middle of the RSS?
So with a rezoning of this property to RMU, if that use were to cease, for example, say in 2 years, you would still have a property that is zoned RMU. All of the permitted uses in that district would be allowed to occupy that space on that property. Anything that would require an SUP would have to go through the SUP process. It wouldn't automatically revert back to RSS. Somebody would have to do a map amendment to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in a quandary. I agree with Commissioner Phillips. I think the proposed use is very commendable and necessary and needed. I'm just conflicted about the location. And I'm not quite sure how to resolve that. I don't know that any more discussion or research would clear up that.
Yeah. Sure, I understand.
I think it would be easier if the property were bounded by public land on 3 sides.
Yes,
Just
certainly.
being that it's right in the middle of the block with the RSS on either side is what's giving me a little bit more heartburn.
Yeah, I can understand, certainly. I think that the program is valuable, the situation and where it's insofar as if it doesn't change the zoning in the area, however, to something that would be radically different, though, or change. I mean, although there are additional permitted uses versus RSS, that is certainly the case. But I feel like that this is something that we've been supportive of in the past to do these kinds of programs. And I'm at least feel like from a planning commission perspective, I feel satisfied with the applicants in this regard.
Well, I'll put something out there so we have something to vote on. I move that we accept the findings and recommend the City Council approve the proposed map amended as presented.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the findings and recommend to the City Council for approval. We will now, are we going to vote? Yes, we are going to use the actual in front. So we will now vote. Yeah, the whole process. Some of the, it seems like some of the things aren't taking their selection. There you go.
Yeah.
Did that take?
There.
Okay. I think we'll need to have to do it by oral since when the blinkies, it wasn't taking their selection.
Right.
Sorry.
Commissioner Rickman?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Shanahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Allred.
Yes.
The motion passes 4 yes to no no's. The next item on the agenda is Baymere LLC Final Plat, SUB 20-19, requesting review and approval to create 5 office lots and 1 general commercial lot at property addressed as 1220 West 12th Avenue in the CS Commercial Shopping Zoning District. Harkins. Yes, sir. I see. Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ryan Harkins, Community Development. So this is a final plat being brought to you along West 12th. It was originally part of a PUD that came before the city. The subject property is in the hatch pattern here, and you can see on the next slide the general location. Part of the property is currently occupied by the relocated Central Drug. Part of the south campus of Stillwater Medical is immediately south along 12th. And you can see Blakely and Adams as well. So this would be facing due north approximately. This is street level view, and you can see construction in progress at the time from an older street view photo of Central Drug, and then the subject property with potential lots being not only across from that, but stretching back to the north end of the property as well. This is the proposed plat the applicant has brought forth for approval. This was in their application submission. So lot 1 would be where Central Drug sits. Lot 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 would be the remainder of the property. Lot 5 would be the part that stretches back to the north. With that, staff would answer any questions you might have.
Can you remind me the little, I'm going to call it the thumb at the top? At one point that was going to be access for fire. Remember there was some discussion about fire, but not anything. Did that go away when we replatted?
Staff is going to defer to the agent for the
All right,
applicant.
then
for
I
that.
shall leave that for them. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Was there other questions for staff? I'm sorry, I jumped all over
No,
everybody.
it's good.
I'm sorry. We'll now hear for the applicant, open the public hearing, and hear from the applicant.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. Stephen Gose with Gose & Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant. Yeah, I was looking around the room. I think Brad was on the commission, and none of these planners were here. Last time we were here was January 16th of 2018, seeking approval of the planned unit development to allow the development. So this final plat follows that. It's just the owner of Central Drug now owns the entire parcel. He's ready to plat it. He's got some interest in it, so we need to go ahead and create these lots. Nothing has changed from the approved PUD. So we came into that meeting with a road going out to 11th through discussions. There was a conditional approval here to not have that connection and to have fences along the edges. So the T turnaround that's shown in there today meets the fire code.
Okay.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Question for applicant.
Sure.
Just, and being as I wasn't here
Right.
in 2018, just a little bit of question, and I think you've already addressed the one, which is the emergency vehicle access. I was just kind of wondering mostly about vehicular traffic up and down that road. And so it's noted in here as being an access egress easement in place of a street.
Correct.
And that it will be hard surfaced. So thinking about trash pickup, mail delivery, the residents parking there, visitors that would come, just wondering what kind of, who's taking responsibility to keep that in an operable order, and would it be built to city standard for a street?
So it's not going to be built to city standards for a street, but it's probably a 6-inch concrete pavement. There's concrete there today. There are covenants that have been assembled for the document or for the property that will go with it, that there'll be a property owners association created, that everybody is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that.
Okay. All right.
surface.
you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Since you're here, are there other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application, please step forward and provide your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition for the item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Since there's only staff out in the audience, I'll assume that we can close the public hearing and ask for staff's recommendations. Or staff's alternatives, sorry, not recommendations.
It's okay. So, as proposed, the final plat does meet zoning and subdivision requirements. This is a mix of office and commercial general zoning. If it had over 30 lots, it would be required to have 2 access points. It does not have that many lots, so it only needs the 1. It does meet recommendations for low-density residential uses in this location, which is listed in the comp plan. There's a mix of residential, commercial, and office at this specific location. We mentioned, commercial, general, and office zoning is listed here. It does meet those zoning district requirements. With that in mind, you can accept the findings and recommend and provide approval of the final plat as proposed and recommend acceptance by council. You can find that this request is not appropriate and you can recommend denial. Or if you feel additional information is needed or additional discussion, you can table the item to a date certain. Questions about those alternatives?
Thank you very much. We'll now have discussion, commission discussion, and/or a motion.
Without any objection, I move to approve.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept staff findings and recommend for approval. We're going to try the voting again, so let's see if those will work. It looks as though some of them are blinking and some are not blinking, so that may be why they're not counting the individual. It's not working again. I'm very sorry. We'll go ahead and do this by oral. Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Allred?
Yes.
The motion passes 4 yes to no no's. The next item is the City of Stillwater Increment District Number 4 and Increment District Number 5, Stillwater, Oklahoma, AD 20-01, receiving public comment regarding the Boomer Lake Station project plan. Good evening.
Good evening. Paula Dennison, Assistant City Manager, here to present before you this evening the request for review and a recommendation of the proposed Boomer Lake Station project plan. As you know, Oklahoma has the Local Development Act that authorizes tax increment financing districts within the state of Oklahoma. As part of that, the Planning Commission is specifically authorized to review the project plan and make a recommendation to the City Council or the governing body. With this project plan, we are looking at 2 increment districts before you this evening, District 4 and District 5. So the map that was included in your packet and is on the screen indicates the boundaries of those. So increment District 4 is the hatched area in the gray and the orange, and I'll get to that distinction here in just a moment. The spotty areas, and there are 2 of those are proposed as increment district number 5. The reason increment district number 4 is colored 2 separate colors is because the orange portion actually adjoins Boomer Lake. We're calling it the shoreline. The sidewalk that is also within that portion connects to Kamioka Trail. This is a part of the increment district's proposal that will not be conveyed to anyone. The city is retaining it for a number of reasons, but it will be retained by the city. So if you look at District 4, it is the city retained portion along the shoreline and the existing decommissioned power plant, Boomer Lake Station. That's certainly an icon in this community, as well as the 2 parcels that front on Boomer Road that the city of Stillwater owns. Increment District 5 are the 2 parcels north of the city-owned parcels on Boomer or Washington, and the northern one adjoins Lakeview Road. The southern parcels are at the intersection of Boomer and High Point Drive. So an existing map, of course, you have the decommissioned power plant. Then from the north, that's where Quality Water, it is a privately held retail establishment. Coming south, LifeNet Ambulance Services, that property is also privately held. Our 2 City of Stillwater parcels, we're using them right now just for open storage of materials that are used through the electric utility. Coming further south at the corner of Boomer and High Point, the vacant restaurant, it is privately held. And then back to the east of that is an apartment complex, which also is privately held. So the proposal that is before you this evening, there is a financing component associated with it. And Deputy City Manager Melissa Reams is also here. We're tag teaming before you this evening in case you have specific questions about any of the financial component of it. But the proposed improvement plan, it indicates quite a mixture of attraction for this area. You have some retail, you have some continual use of the iconic building itself. The proposal is to retain that building, not to demolish it, but add some activities within that building, retail, bar, some of those that will draw people in. Then you'll have some of the other areas proposed around it for mixed use and some residential retail, and I believe there's some office space in there. All of these are going to be very complementary to Boomer Lake itself, that has such a huge draw of our citizens and our visitors within this community. So you will see that this proposed improvement plan does not indicate inclusion along the shoreline. Once again, the City of Stillwater is retaining that property. Looking at more of a beach front being installed on that part where there is access to that portion of Boomer Lake for use of the water. So water sports, beach activities, cabana type facilities there that would be owned that portion of the property. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. We did open this up for public input if there was any public that wished to comment on the proposed project plan. And then again, Melissa is here if there are any financing or funding questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure there'll be some questions. My only question was, then what action is it? What are we to do other than hear the public hearing? Is there an action that we'll take on this?
Yes, there is.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
I'll
Very
get
good.
to that in just a moment.
That's fine. No problem. Questions, please, if there are some.
Well, first off, I was thrilled to see this. Being a Stillwater kid, growing up here, being a native, this building is one that is definitely iconic, one that I've grown up around. And you know, way back when I used to drive to school in the mornings, I would go right past this when the road went on the south side of it, and just. And I think it's a wonderful example of a modern industrial style of architecture. which leads me to my next question. Is there a possibility, or has the possibility been researched about a possible historic designation and historic tax credit development?
I know, and Melissa may be able to speak a little more to this, I know that the developer is looking at all opportunities that are available, in so much as the new market tax credits that are available, enterprise zone opportunities. There's a number of things that he has looked at or looked into to see if they're applicable. I don't know of any specifics from the historic standpoint. Melissa's shaking her head
Okay.
no also.
All right, thank you. That was my question.
So, Assistant City Manager Dennison, I think it would be prudent if somebody, maybe Assistant City Manager Reams, could walk us through the entire financing aspect of it for the record, and should anybody be watching tonight wanting to know more about how that works.
We'll see if I can articulate this. So the project plan really contemplates the uses. Yes, Melissa Reams, Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer for the City of Stillwater, housed here at 723 South Lewis Street in City Hall. The project plan for a TIF really contemplates the objectives and the goals that the plan is going to anticipate achieving. So those were laid out very succinctly in our project plan right at the beginning. It talks about the project history and speaking to the iconic Boomer Lake Station and the need to repurpose that facility and maintain its character and its integrity. In doing so, the city went out for request for proposal back in, I want to say it was 2018, looking for that developer that could come in and really take something that is so unique in its composition and repurpose that into whatever they saw that being. And it was interesting, the proposals that the city received. The one that we settled on is with a developer out of, I think at that point in time he was living in Chicago, and his vision for Boomer Lake Station was this meet and greet area with a rooftop deck looking out over the lake, and a brew pub, and then this mixed use that had an entertainment factor to it. He also has expanded it to include some high-end residential in the form of condominiums that would look out over the lake as well. And so his vision is very much in line with what the city was looking for. Paula did an excellent job of showing you the boundaries of the project area and explaining to you the need for 2 TIF districts. And they were broken down by public property, which is not on the tax rolls right now. So that increment is instant and it's huge. It's very impactful to the project. The other already on the tax roll properties, their increment is going to be based on a benchmark value when that TIF is put into existence. It does, if you read the project plan, number 5 has a delay factor on it, but you'll have that benchmark value, so your increment will be the difference between the benchmark value and the appraised value as the years go on through the county assessor. So trying to break those things up. The project that is proposed is in, I think it's in 5 phases right now. So there will be phase 1 and 2 that will involve the publicly owned properties. And then based on the maturity of those properties and how the projects go, phases 3, 4, and 5 will involve the currently taxed properties. And again, it's baby steps, but it depends on how those initial phases mature out and how they are received. Let's see here. So when you're looking at TIFs, you go through and try and create a budget based on the new appraised values for the property after the investments are made, and what kind of tax dollars through ad valorem and sales tax those projects are going to generate. And the budget that was listed there in the project plan is $9.3 million with change. To give you some perspective, the downtown TIF that we did in 2018, TIF number 3, it is an ad valorem and sales tax TIF as well, and its budget is $32.5 million. So in respect to that one, this is much smaller, and it only involves one project, really, or one developer, multiple projects. We also have built into this TIF a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. And so attached to those condominiums, the developer envisions charging a much higher tax rate to those folks to be in that particular area to help put into the TIF fund and pay back the development costs to the project. And it is his opinion that he will not have any trouble selling those pieces and generating those additional taxes. At build out, this project is estimated to be $30 million, and that's through all 5 phases. So it is a significant change for that particular area. And if you look at the surrounding, we not only look at what the TIF or the project plan area can generate, but what the induced growth is going to be in the surrounding areas. You've got a lot of apartment complexes over there. We have Cimarron Plaza, which has the potential, again, to be regenerated. I was in college when that came online, and it was brand new, and we got Hobby Lobby, and it was just wonderful. And I would love to see it kind of restored to its former glory when it was brand new. So what, is this answering the questions you have? Maybe
Commissioner,
discussion.
does this help for what you're looking for?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager and CFO Reams. Does it make sense to go, so on my page 8, there's some kind of a financial breakdown. Does it make sense for the record to kind of walk through
Sure.
those line items? And then I'm
Yes.
done.
So the assistance in development financing, that is the dollar value that that the plan pledges to help the developer. And in this particular instance, the developer is going to require a certain percentage of that money up front to get his project going. That is, the way that gets funded is kind of outside of this project plan. The public infrastructure facilities and improvements, that speaks to the beach area. Again, those are public realm areas, and within the project area, that's why we kept them within the project area. We can use that to build the beach and to some extent maintain the public realm. Implementation and administration costs, the big one is legal fees. And that's what that's going to go to help us do. Title work, those kinds of things. And then we just have a contingency built in because we never know what we're going to find in an old building. All of these are within the Local Development Act, and that's in Title 62 of our Oklahoma statutes. And it starts in section, I believe it's 850, if you wanted to go out and read the statutes in their entirety.
Thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
I think that is incredibly helpful, not only A, to get all of that in the record, but to have a explanation of where everything goes and what for is tremendously helpful to the citizens and anybody in the future who may want to look back on this and see what this may be all about. So thank you so very much.
You're very welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Anything else?
Yes, I have a couple of
Oh,
questions.
okay.
One, I remember the discussions on the core bid district when there was some controversy over how the TIF money was going to be allocated to public sector entities, and there was a certain degree of pushback from Meridian. And I notice it's been broken down, how some of these funds might be allocated to the different public sector entities. Have discussions actually been held so that there is some degree of consensus about this?
Absolutely, and Chairman Rickelman was one of our participants. I think unfortunately he was not able to be with us that evening. But we have, part of the Local Development Act requires you to have a citizen and multi-jurisdictional review committee. And some of this, I call them standing members, that may not be quite right, but each taxing jurisdiction sends a representative to the meeting, and then from that meeting, they choose 3 citizen representatives. So on this committee, you had Chair Dr. John Wedlake, Brad Rickelman represented the Planning Commission, Chris Redding represented Payne County, Kelly Rader represented Payne County Health. We had Dr. Major, who represented Meridian, and Dr. Moore, who represented Stillwater Public Schools. Your citizen representatives were Scott Petty and Jeremy Bale. And we did have another citizen representative, but she was unable to attend that evening as well. So we had a quorum when we met. They had very good discussion because this is concerning, especially here in Oklahoma, where we are the only state in the United States where government, local government, does not participate in the apportionment of ad valorem tax. And so they felt very strongly during the discussion, especially Dr. Moore in the school district, that the voters had approved those percentages, those millages, in support of each one of their organizations. During the discussion, though, it was brought up that because of the nature of this area of town, and I hate to use the term blight, because I don't think any part of Stillwater is really blighted, not like that word brings up images in my mind. But it is an area that needs a kickstart, if you will, to redevelop. And down the line, with the exception of Dr. Moore, the participants in the discussion really felt like this was, while this is risky, while this is a risk, any development is a risk, this was a calculated risk, and that the reward was worth the risk. And so it passed out of that review committee, bringing it here to the Planning Commission. I think it was 5-1. I think there were 6 members there, with the school district being the dissenting vote. So we did have that. Now, where we go from here, depending on how you all rule, it goes to council, and we are planning to take that to council on Monday evening, the 30th. There will be time for public comment. It's not a public hearing, but it's public comment. People can come in and tell us yay or nay, how they feel about this project. We take that, we may change the project plan. We could amend the project plan. And then we will bring it back on December the 14th for a true public hearing at that point. I hope you all saw the publication in the news press this weekend it was a notice of our intent to form these 2 TIFs. And so we're really trying to put on notice the people that could be have an interest in the development of that property.
Okay, sorry, I've got a couple other questions.
Oh, you go right
too.
ahead.
The $30 million figure, that's potential investment in the TIF
Correct.
districts?
Correct.
And not interested in drilling into the numbers, but where did that number come from?
That comes from the developer. So he's looking at the project, looking at the build out, and he is aside from what the TIF is going to provide, he's going to bring that financing to the table and invest in Stillwater.
Okay. Some other questions. I noticed that there's the term enterprise zone that's used here, and is it, I assume that's an enterprise zone that was established in the Congress that has
Yes,
certain financial
that
benefits?
is a federal designation, and it really affects federal-type credits that might be available. I had to do some research, and I'm sorry, I'm a little vague on what those credits are. But I think through the research, felt like it was more than likely not something that we were going to be, or that he was going to be able to go for.
Okay.
It really is up to the developer to go after these credits. So as Assistant City Manager Dennison pointed out, there are new market tax credits that they can go after. There's some really interesting new tourism credits here in Oklahoma. And hopefully they'll be able to avail themselves of some of those as well.
Okay. In terms of the private property, the water, quality water and the life net, what are their plans as this development moves forward? Are they going to vacate those properties eventually, or?
I don't know that I can speak to that a whole lot, because that really, again, is between the developer and those property owners.
But I would assume the developer feels that there is potential that they would, so he could then utilize those properties,
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
The power plant. I guess I know this is very conceptual, so I don't expect anything detailed, but are they actually going to use the inside of that building? And they, again, have done some preliminary engineering studies that they can do that.
Yes. This developer has, Paula and I have actually been working with this developer for over 2 years. And he has had numerous engineers in there and construction people. So I think where a lot of his money is going to be spent is on that third floor and creating that rooftop bar.
Right.
Because you've got to make sure, and I'm not the engineer, I was over in the business school. But I think you've got to make sure that that thing is structurally so
Right.
it can support all of that. A lot of what I call the guts of Boomer Lake Station, they're going to stay. And so when you come in and you're in that, the ground floor, I think, is where he's going to put the brew pub. And so you're going to see this really industrial, kind of eclectic, and you're going to be in that environment watching the brew going on.
Right, well, that kind of design is nothing new anymore, so
No,
that's.
it's not,
that's good
and
to
we've
see
seen a
they're
lot of
incorporating
those
that.
from, I think the one that I remember most, I think, is down in Austin, where they've taken something similar and made this just attraction. That's really what I think one of the goals is of these two TIFs, is to help further that entertainment and that attraction to bring visitors to Stillwater.
Well, I think it's smart using Boomer Lake and the park to leverage that whole concept. I've just been waiting to be done for a long time, probably, but. So
Yeah.
what kind of, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So what kind of experience does this developer have with?
This developer actually has several brew pubs in different states. The ones that I remember the most are down in Texas. So he has one in, I want to say he's got one in Sanger, Texas. So if you're going down I-35,
Yeah, I'm
he's
familiar.
created one there. I want to say in the Austin area as well. His full-time job, besides being a developer, is he works for a wholesale food distributor, and he has for years. And so he really has a feel for what it takes to put in a brew pub and what it takes to put in. The original plan was a restaurant as well, and we've kind of had to modify the plan. I think if things go well, that could be a further phase that he might add later on. I will say he has connections to Stillwater. He is an OSU alum, and he wants to come back and invest in Stillwater.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for answering the questions.
Absolutely.
And this is a exciting development, I think.
It is very exciting. It really is, especially in this last 8 months that we've had and where we're still masked up. It would be lovely to have something positive for us all to focus
Oh,
on.
absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Very welcome.
Any other questions? There being none, is that going to be another question?
No, go ahead.
All right. I think I need to open for public hearing at this time. I think that's what we're supposed to say here. It says public comment. There's no one in the audience, but I think I should at least say that it's open for public comment. All in favor, come up and speak. Anyone not in favor, please come up and speak. If not, right, public comment. Public comment. But I see none, so we'll ask for staff alternatives, or what we do now.
Thank you. If you can't tell, we're quite excited about this proposal and this opportunity, the idea of adaptive reuse here in Stillwater.
Just so I can make sure we keep the minutes straight, have you moved on to item 3, or are you still on item C?
I'm still in item C.
Item C.
Yes.
That's what I think.
The adaptive reuse opportunity here in Stillwater, we don't see that tremendously. A lot of the history around here is tear it down and rebuild something in its place. So this, in particular with this building, and those of you who are familiar with it, I'll just throw this in right quickly. There is a very unique shell on the outside of the building, and the developer is excited to retain that on the outside of the building, and also redo the staircase that those of you who recall usually stayed lit at night on the outside of the building. However, they have not taken my suggestion of putting in a glass elevator on the northeast corner of the building.
Do we turn it down because of that?
Oh, I thought that was a great idea. You can rise up and down watching Boomer Lake. But no, sir, I wouldn't turn it down because of that. So the action item here before you this evening, you have the findings in your packet. I'll go through those right quickly. The status of Boomer Lake Station Power Plant is decommissioned and unusable in its current arrangement. The Boomer Lake Station Project Plan Review Committee that Melissa discussed does recommend approval. And the proposed Boomer Lake Station project plan is in conformance with the Stillwater 2020 C3 Comprehensive Plan. Therefore, the action on this item this evening to accept the findings and recommend that the council approve the Boomer Lake Station project plan based on 4 things: the Stillwater C3 Comprehensive Plan, the proposed project plan, with appropriate zoning being a mixture of that general commercial as well as residential multifamily, because we went through the proposed improvements with you. And of course, any of the rezonings subject to the public hearings at the map amendment stage.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the findings for the Boomer Lake Station project plan and recommend the Boomer Lake Station project plan for approval by the Stillwater City Commission based on the Stillwater 2030 C3 Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the proposal and recommend for approval based on the 2020 plan and those other criteria thereof. We'll now vote.
Mr. Rickelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Allred?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. You're probably going to stick up here, probably. The next item is plans, policies, and ordinance for public hearing, discussion, and possible action. Resolution PC-2020-1, a resolution of the Stillwater Planning Commission determining that the Boomer Lake Station project plan is in conformance with Stillwater 2030 C3 Comprehensive Plan for the City of Stillwater and recommending approval and adoption of the station project plan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners. Again, Paula Dennison, Assistant City Manager with the City of Stillwater. This resolution, we had to get one in before the end of the year, so we're getting 2020-1 before you this evening. This just solidifies the action that you took at the public input session. This is the resolution that will be provided to the city council for their November 30th and their December 14th action on the Boomer Lake Station project plan, increment district number 4 and increment district number 5. So the action we request of you this evening is to approve resolution PC 2020-1.
Without objection, move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept Resolution PC-2020-1. We will now vote.
Mr. Rickelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Allred?
Yes.
The motion passes 4 yes to no no's. Miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or city attorney for discussion and possible action. It does not look like we have our minutes from our last meeting, so we'll do that at the next meeting. So it looks like we'll take next planning commission meeting. It's on December 1st. A motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. We will now vote.
Mr. Rickelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Allred?
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Good evening. It was finally, yeah. I mean.